Good morning and welcome. This is the CS-Sensei CyberSecurity Mentorship Program. We do our webinars weekly, at the moment, Saturdays at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And thanks for joining us. So I have, let me just share my screen here. Select items to share. Yes. Okay, I have some ideas for topics here. We can obviously go off script if there's something that is valuable to speak about. But Nerman, how was your week? Anything going on for you this week?
Well, yeah, I'm getting ready. I'm going to complete my bachelor degree by the end of August, and I'm getting ready to apply for some job, preparing my resume. And yeah, just trying to figure out what's the best way to join the industry.
If you don't mind my asking, are you an American citizen?
No, I'm not. No.
Okay. Do you have a right to work?
Yes, I mean I'm getting now. I already applied for my work. I mean actually I just trying to extend my work permit. I already have work permit.
Got it.
And I just sent the application to extend my work permit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have work permit. I don't have citizenship or a green card.
Very good. Very good. Well, because you're not a U.S. citizen, that means the federal employment is probably not an option. But
correct.
Yeah. One of the things that, was pointed out, I'll share a little bit about this from the summit. MDRs are a big deal. In other words, they're talking about monitoring and reporting for you. And they're trying to sell that MDR as a service, if you will. Cloud-based MDRs were the big talk during the summit I went to. So there are lots of folks saying, we will do the work for you, but they still have a workforce too. So you might look into security operations centers or something like that. As a newcomer, and this is just generally speaking, as a newcomer into the field, it's probably best to look for big organizations. In other words, organizations that can bring you on and bring you up to speed themselves in-house. Good morning, Ron. Bring you up to speed in-house. That will allow you to get in the door faster than if you go to smaller organizations where they have a staff of like 20 and you're expected to inherit some of their workload the moment you arrive. That's the tough part if you're looking for smaller employers. So my general suggestion, and Chris, you may have some as well, but my general suggestion is that you look for larger employers and look for, how do I say this? Try and shoot for getting in the door and then develop from there. Chris?
Yeah.
One of the websites I've shared was cyberseek.org. It actually tells you the feeder roles that you can look for.
Mm-hmm.
And I would agree with Scotty, just shoot for the bigger organizations and go from there.
Yeah, actually I did that. I mean, so my cousin, he works for Discovery, and so he already talked to his boss, and yeah, they said like as soon as I receive my work permit, so I can apply. And then I have two more companies. One is the research center. They do some research for cancer and HIV. So my brother works there, so he also talked with the people from IT department. Same thing, I'm just waiting for my employment authorization card, and as soon as I get, I will apply the first of those 2 companies and see what happens.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you just have
Yeah,
that
I'm aware
one.
that
Go
I'm
ahead.
not eligible to apply for like to work like so for government agencies because I'm not U.S. citizen. But yeah, I will start with those companies and see what happens later.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you just have that one big milestone of getting the authorization to work, and then
Yeah, I'm actually I have just need to because it is going to expire at the end of this month, so I have to just extend for next 2 years. And I hope in meantime I will receive my green card because I also waiting for my green card. So and then I guess after that like it will be a little bit easier. But I'm pretty sure I can get some of those like you guys mentioned, like those kind of independent big companies, organizations, like to get some job. And I'm also trying to complete my certificate for penetration testing. And so yeah. And by the way, I was looking at actually I was looking trying to find the session that you spoke about resume on YouTube, but I couldn't find that one. Can you just tell me which one was? I was checking most of them. And
The one about what?
Resume.
Oh, resumes.
Yeah.
Oh well. Yeah. There is a. Let me see if I can pop it up here on YouTube. If you go to playlists.
Okay.
And take a look at it. There's one here that talks about interviews and job skills.
Okay.
And if you look at it, it includes, well, okay, I'm not going to show that, but it shows, let's see, job interview, communicating technical issues, selling yourself, you are the commodity, interview techniques, how to be successful. Oh, the resume isn't in there. Oh, there it is right at the top. The entry-level cybersecurity job interview, that includes the resume.
Okay, that's the one that I was looking for. Okay, that's good. Like, yeah, I just want to go over. And I was also going to ask you, I know I'm taking too much time, but like maybe if I email to you guys my resume, and if you have time to just take a look and give me some suggestions.
Sure, we'd be happy to.
Yeah, I will do that too. Yeah, thank you, and thank you for those suggestions and all help. Appreciate it.
Right. Looking forward to hearing the success and the possible challenges along the way. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Ron, did you have anything going on this week you wanted to share about? Okay. All right. Well, let me go to the next one, the Cybersecurity Summit that I was at. First of all, it was worth taking the time off. It was worth the 2-hour drive to get there. It was generally a good conference. Let me go down here and talk a little bit about it. I'd say there were about 400 people in attendance, somewhere around 400. That includes people out on the tables, out in the entryway, as well as in the auditorium. When they had their particular sessions, everybody went in. In other words, when there was nothing going on, everybody was out in the hallway, networking, visiting tables and booths and that sort of stuff. And then when there were sessions, everybody went in. So it's not like there were 2 things going on. Everybody was focused on following the order of the agenda, and whenever there were speakers, everyone respected that, and so everyone was participating. So it was a good, orderly group, and I put up there even high school students were there. One, and I would say he's pretty wise high school teacher, brought his whole class there, about 10 kids, and they sat together, they walked around together, and I would say the the general look on their faces was they were stunned. They didn't know what to think, and so all of them were like just the whole time. You could tell them, you know, really young looking with blank looks on their faces. So, of course, I'm honest, I was the only person that arrived with a box of cards. I didn't see anybody else. They may have been sharing cards, but not prolifically like I did, because I would walk up to a table. By the time I left that table, just talking, by the time I left that table, each one of them had a card. When I would step into a group of people, I'd say, do you guys have my cards? And that sort of thing. So it was really cool. And I walked straight into the pack of students and spoke with their teacher and handed them all cards and said, you guys are more than welcome to join us. Happy to have you. And so we'll see what happens. You know, some of them may be back going to class, looking at their cards going, is this guy legit? You know, but we'll see. And again, these were high school students, and it looked like it was a small high school, possibly even private, because there were, how do I say this? They were, again, they all had the same look on their faces, like they'd been together for a while. So perhaps that was it. The MDR services were the big thing out in the hallway. Now, of course, there were threat response. Cisco was there. Palo Alto Networks was there. In fact, let me show. Oh, I've got a web page from them. Nope, I thought I did, but there were. Oh, let me see if I can go to this one and go back. Nope. Nope. Anyway, so it was a good summit. There were some boring things where they talked about things like cybersecurity insurance. There were at least 2 cyber insurance companies in there, and their discussion was obviously focused toward what we can do for you. Everything was well received. There was actually one consultant that was on the they had like panel discussions, and then they would bring people in across the internet. And one person was in Washington, D.C. with a law firm there, and mentioned that the federal government, let's see, yeah, this is the legal risk or the legal cyber landscape, said that there is the federal government seems to be pushing toward more legislation. And that legislation is along the lines of forcing certain groups to do certain things because of their certain role in supporting the federal government. This is exactly what we mentioned about critical infrastructures, as well as what they call strategically important entities, SIEs. And so it was helpful. It helped to point out that we are all on the right track. What we are discussing here, what we are going through, what we are learning about is true to the industry. Nearly every group that I was talking to talked about their own skills gap. You know, regardless of how small the group was, it always seemed like there wasn't enough of them. So that was a pretty helpful thing. When I spoke with each one of these groups, because I went to, I think, nearly every table and shared with them what we do here and why. And they were all impressed. They were saying, like, wow, never thought about that. I said, I know, because you're a practitioner. You're focused toward the industry, not toward the people that need to get into the industry, so you guys have people to hire next year. They all were very appreciative of this program. And again, even though everybody's talking about AI taking people's jobs away and whatever, Not a single one of them discussed staff reductions. No one. They weren't like, oh, and we're going to start enjoying that coming up. No, right now. Oh, and in reference to AI, if I would say the overall topic focused on it's a big risk and it's a big promise, and the issue is whatever is being done in AI, we need to get there first. And it was sort of like an AI arms race. It was the prevailing attitude. In other words, with all speed, be learning about ChatGPT and how to use it. Come up with operational scenarios, come up with thoughts and ideas about it. Because the others are, I was just looking this morning in Google News, AI, all the way down. You know, it's a big deal. So be thinking about that. If you are interested in doing things in cybersecurity, AI is here to stay. Regardless of how bad it may seem and how dangerous it may seem, the issue is it could be a weapon in the hands of both the white hats and the black hats. So the white hats are scurrying to develop things, manage threat response scenarios, detection, collaboration and sharing, all those sorts of things. They're pushing really hard to do it with AI. So ChatGPT just opened the door. And they pointed out ChatGPT is not something new. They've had AI for 40 years out there. It's just that now it is maturing to the point where it can be used in a business sense, and from the black hat's standpoint, it can be used as a tool. So it was a good discussion, good summit. Anybody have any questions, comments, discussions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
When you mentioned like there is the race in IAA, did you mean like the race between countries, or like those big companies like Tesla, Google?
Yeah, it was interests, if you want to think about it that way. When we talk about countries, as far as cybersecurity is concerned, in fact, this was from the Department of Justice webinar that we attended 2 weeks ago. They spoke about it in terms of NSA. They say that there are two major cybersecurity black hat groups out there. One are called nation-state actors, NSAs, and the other are what are called cyber criminals. And they mentioned that their methods are different and their motives are different. The cyber criminals want to make money. They want to get money. That's the only thing that they're trying to do this for. And the nation-state actors don't really care much about the money in many cases. So the nation-state actors have what Department of Justice and CISA and those guys said, they have more exquisite tools. They focus more on slow attack scenarios, etc., and they reserve and they use the word exquisite, they use their more exquisite tools only when needed. In other words, if they use a special tool to, let's say, breach into IBM or whatever, then they become discovered, and they want to keep that back. They're holding back. They have an arsenal that they're working on. Not so for the cyber criminals. The cyber criminals sort of band together. Well, I can do the money side. I can do the client side, or those sorts of things. I have a botnet, and so they sort of collaborate, but it's only in reference to money. So there is the only thing that they discussed about countries was that there are national sponsors for some of these black hat groups. But they did not speak about how Switzerland is doing very well in their cybersecurity approach. This was not focused on anything like that. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. They did mention that China is now taking over as the primary threat source for nation-state actors over Russia. One thing I did want to point out, somebody brought up a quiz question and quizzed the whole audience, and they said, which sector, in other words, whether it's critical infrastructures, power production, banking, etc., which sector suffers the most in reference to cyber attacks and have for the last 13 years, they said. Any ideas on which sector?
Yeah, that's good question.
It surprised me. They said the number one sector, not in terms of costs and business loss, it's healthcare.
Oh yeah, healthcare. Yeah, especially during the pandemic and especially last year. I remember then was the ransomware, like in some of the German hospitals.
Right.
And one person actually lost life because of that.
That's right.
Yeah.
They mentioned that as well. When the hospital got shut down and somebody actually lost a life as a result. And they mentioned that the main driver for that, both for nation-state actors and cyber criminals, is that hospitals or healthcare agencies can't afford downtime. They can't, because people die. So it was an interesting thing to help me understand that health services is a big deal, and the issue they have is that they are under-resourced. This is not their bag. This is not what they're focused on. They're focused on, health and wellness and those sorts of things. And then when you start talking technical stuff, very few of them are what you would call accomplished in the field of cybersecurity. So it was interesting to hear that. They put that up on the screen in the middle of one of the seminars, and wouldn't you know, a lot of people were like, it's got to be, banking or whatever, but nope, that's not the case. Small to medium businesses, no. The big one is health services. And I thought that was interesting. So, fun stuff. Any other questions? Okay. The next one, we talk about career choices. This came up as a result of a post in our Facebook group this week, and they talked about, someone saying, well, you're going to be a white hat hacker. I wanted to try and help set some expectations, because there are a bunch of different jobs and job skills that aren't cyber hacking, that aren't penetration testing. There's the cybersecurity, but then there's also what's known as information assurance. Those are the people that help to make sure you're following the laws and your CEO doesn't end up on the front page of the Washington Post. Those sorts of things. There are auditors, there are accountants, there are administrators. There are lots of groups that form together to make this entity called cybersecurity. And I'll give an example. When you hear people talk about, I'm going to go in the Air Force, why do you think people choose the Air Force over other career fields in the military? Why? Thoughts?
It's very tech heavy compared to the other services.
Okay.
And you have opportunities after you leave.
Okay. But why would, okay, you're thinking cyber, and I appreciate that. They have a very strong cyber force in the Air Force, and they are tech heavy. Good point. But when I grew up, when people talked about going into the Air Force, they thought about one thing, and that was, I want to fly jets. But if you think about it, for every one person in the cockpit, there must be 100 or 500 people that do everything else. Who puts gas in the tank? Who helps to make sure that the aircraft is running properly? Who sits in the flight line and makes sure that all of the airplanes are, you know, flying in the right direction and don't run into each other? All of that is part of the Air Force. So I just want people to understand that you may not be a hacker. White hat or black hat, you may not be a hacker. It's good to know about it, but it may not be your focus, especially when you're getting started. If you have no experience and you have a pen testing certification, all that means is you've done it on paper and nothing else. You have not had that real world opportunity to actually operate in like a SOC, to where you can say, we watch for pen testing. We set up systems so they monitor for pen testing. We're good at setting trip lines and AI models that will look for anomalies. One of the big things they said in these couple seminars, anomalous actions are a big thing they're watching for. If somebody is logging in at a time or accessing resources that they don't usually do, then that is an anomalous activity and it gets logged. And they could, you know, do things like call you up at your desk and say, is that you logging in? You know, what are you doing there in the middle of the night or whatever? So there are a lot of people in cybersecurity, the vast majority in cybersecurity, that don't have anything to do with penetration testing. So be careful that you don't walk in and say, I want to be a gunslinger, when you don't have any. Well, I'm going to use the phrase, there are no bullets in your gun, because you have no experience. So just setting expectations here, be aware that there are lots of jobs, lots of areas you can get into that don't necessarily involve penetration testing. Even from a cybersecurity workforce standpoint, even the defensive side may not have very much information or knowledge, especially expertise in penetration testing. Just like people want to fly jets when they go into the Air Force, people want to be white hat hackers when they go into cybersecurity, but it may not occur that way. It depends all on your hiring organization and what they need. And if I were a hiring organization, let's say I'm a managed service provider and I'm bringing you in off the street, I am absolutely not going to be putting you in the hands of my cyber testing group, because that may only be a couple people, and what I look for is expertise, not certifications, not college. I'm looking for expertise. So you may get there at some point, but don't look for it entry level. Don't walk in and say, I want to be a pen tester with no experience. That is probably an extremely, you would have to be very persuasive to teach someone to put you in charge of something that could result in harm. Just a thought. Okay? Thoughts, ideas about that?
Yeah, I have a comment actually. Yeah, first of all, it was really good example. And I also remember, like, there was the guy who made a TikTok video and was saying, like, I work like in cybersecurity, and he made a video like what my friends think what I do in my job, and then there was the video like hacking, but then he said, actually, I'm checking just spam emails. Something really simple, and that was so funny. And I was thinking about that. Yeah, that's true. Like, so, like, people, when you tell people like, hey, I'm cybersecurity professional, or I'm in cybersecurity, people immediately think that you're doing something like really important, like maybe like kind of like doing some kind of hacking, like getting access to the network or something really
Right.
like coding, programming, but actually like it can be something really simple. And yeah,
Right.
cybersecurity is really broad field. So,
Very broad.
Yeah.
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 Ron, I saw you leaning toward your keyboard.
Yeah. So what beyond information insurance, what are the easier roles to break into if you don't have tech experience?
What I'm saying is there are lots of supporting roles. In other words, if you walk in saying, I want to be a pen tester, and they say, well, you're going to be an analyst. You know, you're not going to touch any tools yet, or you're going to do reports or something like that. I just want to help set expectations so people don't walk in the door thinking that they're going to be a cyber gunslinger, and they end up getting disappointed because they had their heart set on, I want to play with tools. Well, learn those tools, learn to be good at those tools, look for opportunities once you get in the door, but it is not I don't think it's a winning prospect to say, I'm going to be a pen tester entry level. Why would somebody have an entry level pen tester? You've never even put your hands on the tools, and yet you want to be a pen tester. No, I think I'll start you off over in the corner, filing reports or whatever, so that you learn how we do things here before we put you in the hands of these tools.
Hey, Scotty, can I give you a visual? Can you pull up
Sure.
cyberseek.org and show the pathways? Because it actually shows where pen tester is in relevance
Absolutely.
to where feeder roles are in entry-level roles. Because if you look where pen tester is, it's mid-career. I mean, it's very hard to get in entry-level pen tester without having that IT customer service, knowing what those tools exactly do, like you said.
Right. Okay. I turn the screen over to you.
You're going to turn the screen over to me. Perfect. Okay. Let me do boop. Let me do boop. And let me do share desktop. And let's do continue. And I'm going to do cyberseek.org. I think I believe it's the best way to visualize what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I love this tool, by the way.
Yep.
You see penetration and vulnerability tester is mid-level according to cyberseek.org. And this is not Bright Talk. There's a data group that's called Bright Services who collected all this data, and there's CompTIA is involved, ISC Squared is involved. There's a whole bunch of industry associations involved, and all they do is they API Indeed and LinkedIn's job search, and they'll say, hey, what's the skill set of a penetration vulnerability tester, and what's the feeder role for that, and how the arrows connect. But look at penetration and vulnerability tester right here. You can see how you could get started in there.
Right. All of the arrows point to it.
Yep. And where you start, you saw the three light up when I highlighted it.
Mm-hmm.
Networking, software development, and actually being a systems engineer. It sounds like what the companies want you to do is start in these three categories first, work your way into a specialist analyst role, and then come over to penetration testing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's a lateral. Look at these arrows here. I wish they didn't block it with a cybersecurity analysis, but there's actually a loop arrow that goes from here to here, and there to there.
Right.
And you can go from. It seems like it's lateral into the penetration testing, but also get into this area here, and and even think about starting there. The way I think about it is easiest to get in, hardest to get in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to have the most creds on the right-hand side there.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you another example, and this is my personal story. I had before I had the IT specialist job at USDOL, and this was also a similar grief to the reskillers, and it is publicly reported that this was the case. They reskilled me from an analyst position over to a specialist, a program analyst, nothing to do with IT. This is an actual unemployment benefits program, and I wanted to get into IT. The struggle I had was I had no IT skills to get into the 2210 arena. I actually had to volunteer myself to another organization, life cycle refreshing laptops for DC school children and for people in Africa. Again, pull the memories, do the disposal, all that great stuff. That experience, that volunteer experience, was the big pointer that the IT, that my hiring managers were like, he's willing to do that for free, and he's taking this training. And oh, by the way, he got selected out of the thousands of people who applied to that reskilling academy. Yeah, you're in, buddy. But we're going to start you with the most basic thing in the world and what we think you knew. And that was the shell shock experience for me. Was I wasn't playing with all of the Department of Labor's tools. I am more of a, here's the database, here's everything you see in the network, and then your boss is hammering me with questions. Hammering is not the best term in the world, but he's giving me he's giving me questions on, hey Chris, what's going on here? Hey Chris, how many laptops does this agency have? And then eventually they move me into a software group. Hey Chris, can you tell me all the licenses that this agency has? Hey Chris, can you tell me if this software is working or not? Hey Chris, you get the idea here. It's not going into a system. I'm not there at the start. It was a lot of, hey Chris, can you report this back to me? Look at this and report this back to me. That's the reality you're trying to set here, Scotty. Is you're not going to be going in doing these penetration vulnerability testing immediately unless you're really good and you write a really great resume and you saw a really good sales pitch. That's going to be the climb. I'm not saying it's impossible. What I'm saying is there's expectations that the company has or the organization has versus what you want, and they need to match somehow. And that's how you work your way to get to that first job. Right. Yeah. And getting started, you need to be willing to accept anything they will offer you. But that was the sad reality of our reskilling academy. Was you're great and wonderful in these reskills, but we want to start you off as a 7 and 9, and these are 12 and 13s. Going, wait a minute, I'm a 12, 13. Why? These are salary scales, by the way. When I say the numbers here, for those for my mentees who are like lost right now, they're actually, we're trying to cut our salary just a little bit so we can pick up the basic skills. We were like, no. We want a lateral at a 12, where the organization was coming back going, well, wait a minute, you don't have the background skills and experience to have the 12. I actually had a volunteer experience to sit there and say, oh, wait, and then the hiring manager goes, I'm going to lateral you in. Right. Because of volunteer experience. I hope you guys caught that. Because of volunteer experience, Chris was able to get in and maintain his salary. Otherwise, it's very tough to get that expert level or mid-level salary, and you don't have the necessary skills and experience to have that mid-level salary. It's tough. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just tough. Very good. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to take control back. Thanks, Chris. Okay. So I did want to move on. Were there any questions about that? Chris and I are both emphasizing that you need to make sure that you don't set your expectations really high to get started, because it could cause you to become, could lose your enthusiasm about getting into the career field. And we want to make sure that
you know, getting in is your number one focus. Maybe not being the top of the heap, especially in a large organization. Just get in the door, get those experience credentials, and then move from there. Expand from there. Go start by getting in, then go where you want to go down the road. Okay. Chris, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share information about that QR code hijacking discussion, that article you forwarded.
That was a very interesting article I was reading, and it just caught my eye that day. And I completely forgot to look at the video series that you put up on your YouTube channel about QR coding, that we've already spoken about this. But that I thought was very deep, and it was very I won't say sophisticated, but clever by the criminal's part. You show a parking ticket, you simulate the way that the force does the parking ticket, and it goes, hey, if you want to pay it now and just get rid of it and we don't bother you again, put in the QR code. Realizing that it's a fake, a lot of people will sit there and go, oh my, I have a parking ticket. Good people, mind you. I know some people say, oh, I got a parking ticket. Yeah, whatever, I'll talk to DC later. But,
right.
But the good people of the world would sit there and say, oh, okay, and then they see the statement, oh yeah, pay for it, and we'll be out of your hair. Scan this QR code. Meanwhile, the website is a good, similar website, but all police forces say, nope, that's not our website. We actually have a different address that you're supposed to be using, and oh, by the way, we don't have the urgency button you to pay a ticket to get out of your hair. It's more of a, hey, we'll contact you and say, here's the ticket, and here's where you need to pay, and here's your court date if you don't want to feel like paying. Or please check the box if you want to schedule a court date. We'll never, ever be urgent to ask you for your money.
Yeah.
And I provided some couple ideas below saying, well, hey, instead of just having these meter maids coming around and putting parking tickets on the windshield, just take a picture and send it to you in the mailbox, snail mail. That could be one way, but that can be easily spoofed. I get many emails about, I get many snail mails about my mortgage and these different things, and I remember my realtor and the courses they tell you when you buy your first house that say, yep, be very careful about those. Those are scams. That's not coming from your realtor. That's not coming from your mortgage company. Your mortgage company will be contacting you directly, and you'll be knowing what to need to do. That's the business of the mortgage industry. But very clever tricks those criminals are doing in the QR code and using people who want to be good law-abiding citizens to pay the fine just so the police is out of your hair kind of situation.
Yeah. The important thing to recognize, and this is the that the people that are using this in a bad way are understanding this, is that you can't read a QR code. Here's a good QR code, here's a bad QR code, which do you choose? You don't know, you can't tell until you engage and do it. And so all they have to do is have a believable jump page, and they get your money. I gave an example during our webinar when we talked about this. It was the webinar on biometrics. No, it was on electronic business cards. Like my Link card, where I talked about those, because the Link card, number one, it has the tap near field communications, but on the other side it had a QR code. And sure enough, while I was at the summit on Thursday, I was handing my card out for people to scan as well. So the threat is real. It does exist, and you have to watch out. And you may think, oh, well, you know, I'm smart. I know how to handle this, but you are already engaging in a false understanding of what you're doing. They have already gotten you to click in thinking that they could be legit. Otherwise, you wouldn't have scanned the QR code. You think they could be legit. And many of the customers trust humanity. And the bad news is humanity will let you down. So, yeah, good point, Chris. And I think it's inventive. It's sad, but it's inventive that people are doing that, using QR codes as an in to get your money. Well, maybe you need to look for controlled QR codes instead of like one sitting on your front of your car.
Tinfoil hat time. I'm very scared of the QR codes at restaurants now because of that. I know that they don't ask for your money, so to say, but all it takes is somebody to say, hey, here's the paper menu. Oh, by the way, here's a way to pay your bill. And boom, bank account gone.
Right. The one thing for us to remember and to remind our friends and coworkers and associates, family, is if you're on a Windows 10 or a Windows 11 machine, you are the root user. You are the super user. There's no one above that by default, and that means that you can install software, you can install applications, you can install browser plugins, and those sorts of things without even knowing about it. It may just pop up and it may say something like, oh, well, we're going to send you this, click accept down at the bottom when you see the sign. Okay, accept. Well, I was told to. And the next thing you know, you're infected. So good points, exercise caution, and sometimes convenience is not. Good point. Anything else, Chris?
Last quick story. There's a restaurant in Columbia that I go to, and I have a bunch of buddies in my church who are developers and security guys, and we're baffled on how this restaurant is not been hacked or pooned or they have not had a bad day yet, but they have QR codes on their tables, and they'll sit there and say, go ahead and use our Wi-Fi to do it that way. I don't use their Wi-Fi, and neither does my friends do. But they know where you are in the table, and what's baffling us is how they know which order's which and who to give to who and what and how and why. And we still go to this restaurant every day because that's the one topic of conversation we have is how are they maintaining security in this, and we're not reading in the news somewhere that they've been hit hard and no one wants to talk to us about it. They're like, the staff like, oh yeah, we just know. It tickles me.
Curious.
The annoying voice in the room. Again.
There you go.
Yep.
And by the way, I spoke with a lot of folks at the summit Thursday, and I used that expression. I said, I'm teaching these people. They're not going to get experience in such a short amount of time. They can get some experience, but they're not going to walk in and say, I have cybersecurity experience. But what I'm teaching the mentees here is the mindset. That's what's most important. And I pointed out to them, I said, you guys have all heard this. You need to accept the role of being the resident expert. You need to be the protector of the people around you. You need to, like Chris was saying, be that annoying voice at parties that walks in and said, have you guys patched your iPhone? It's really important that you do it right now. If you don't have time, just hand it to me and I'll do it for you, or something like that. That is the role that you should feel comfortable doing, because people around you will trust you. Your experience level may be only slightly above everybody else in the room, but that's okay. You can help those people that agree to be helped. But if you don't talk, if you don't share, then you're just another face in the crowd. So step forward and, get into people's private space. Most of the time, they're not going to say, no, I got this. They're going to say, oh, I didn't know. Then the next time around, they're going to see you and they're going to look at you and listen to you. And if you don't have anything to say, then they're going to say, oh, good, we are okay right now, or whatever. You become the thermostat. If you think about it, you turn the thermostat up, the room gets hotter. You turn the thermostat down, the room gets colder. You will be the thermostat in reference to cybersecurity to help set expectations. And people will look to you and trust you, but only if they know you're doing it. So that means you've got to start off. You've got to share. And one of the best ways to do it is to say, I'm doing a cybersecurity mentorship because I'm going to get into cybersecurity. And, if you need any help or assistance, just let me know and I'll do what I can. Put yourself out there. Make yourself available. You are the commodity to the people around you. Okay, last thing I wanted to share for the day. Yep, we're on our last few minutes, so that is a good one. I wanted to talk about the weekly assignments because, again, while I was there at the summit talking to people, I realized that this is actually something that helps you as the mentees, helps you shape your mind toward how you should be acting all the time. There were people there that when I mentioned the weekly assignments, I said, there are practitioners galore. There are people that are working on certain services, certain approaches, certain tools. Again, Cisco and Palo Alto, it was hilarious. Cisco and Palo Alto networks were side-by-side booths. I said, this is, I shared it with both of them. I said, this is hilarious. Whoever put you two here knew exactly what they were doing. And they were like, yeah, I know. Well, because they kept talking about our competition. So it was really cute. But the important thing to remember is that mindset, so that you can start looking at the world through a cybersecurity lens. You can start looking at something and saying, what are the cybersecurity implications of that? What are the risks? What information do people not have that they need to have? Maybe I can help in that area. In other words, you think about yourself in whatever role you're in. You could be in a movie theater, it doesn't matter, but you could be in a family reunion, you could be at dinner with your in-laws, whatever, but you inherit that mindset, and it's up to you to be that ambassador, to help make their lives less risky by what you teach them. Now, cybersecurity is kind of a tough career field because I was in my alumni association has a monthly webinar, and I was in the webinar, and I said I'm a cybersecurity mentor, and sure enough, one of the guys in the group was like, yeah, I'm in cybersecurity now. I'm taking my PenTesting, I'm going to try and get into PenTesting. Okay, what experience do you have? None. Okay, see, there's one of those people with the expectation that I'm going to be a gunslinger. I'm going to apply for a job as a gunslinger with no experience. I watched him do it. But they had ladies that were in the group, and they were the ones that spoke up. They said, what do you think of? They said, sneaky. When you mention cybersecurity, sneaky. They're the people that are spying on us. They're the people that are, trying to see if I'm going on Netflix more than I should be at work or something like that. They think of cybersecurity as being an impediment, not as a help. And you've got to try and help change that perception to where you become valuable to them. You become a resource to them. You walk in the room and they instantly trust you, instead of, oh yeah, you're one of those people that's out there policing us. Well, that's part of what we do, But the other thing is we try and help make sure that the lights are on when you get into work tomorrow. You know, so think about it. These weekly assignments are valuable. You should do this intentionally all the time. Whenever you open the news, start looking for cybersecurity. Whenever you're in a movie or looking at YouTube videos or what, be thinking about the cybersecurity aspects of that particular thing. It could be somebody who's selling flowers. It doesn't matter. Chris, we mentioned this before. QR code hijacking. Is it really such a good idea to incorporate QR codes into your organization? They don't think about it except for what will it do to help us. Maybe not the risks or the possible implications of compromise. So be thinking about cybersecurity from the viewpoint of a provider, and it will be helpful for you. It really will. But you gotta, you know, you're not doing it now, so do these homework assignments, bring stuff back that you have done. There's nothing wrong with bringing stuff back and sharing it with the group. In fact, I highly encourage it. It will do you good in the end. Okay, we're on our last minute or two. Anybody have anything else to share? Excellent. Well, everybody, thank you for participating. Ron, Nerman, always good to have you guys, and keep it up. Oh, Ron, did you hear about anything about your job interviews and stuff?
No, I haven't really been applying recently. I need to get back into it.
Yeah, keep at it.
Keep at it. Yep.
I heard this one discussion. This was over in the federal webinar that they had. They said, as a defender, so think about this as a job applicant. No, I'm sorry. As a job applicant, you would be the intruder, but as a defender, you've got to be right 100% of the time. But as an intruder, you only have to be right once. So think about it that way in reference to your job. You may have 99 no's. You're out there looking for the yes. So don't get discouraged. It just takes one yes. Okay? Excellent. Thanks, everybody. And we will talk next time, I'm sure.